Today, guys, we are going to be talking about one of our favorite movies from 1979.
78.
Oh, 78. Gosh, dang it. 1978. Great year. And it is Superman the movie. And I think the best person to lead this conversation would obviously be Steve Lago. He is a huge Superman fan, and he knows about everything there is to know about Superman. So take it away, Steve.
Yeah, so 1978 Superman the movie. This is like the movie that basically started the whole superhero big screen phenomenon, right? I mean, before this movie, they never thought about how they could make comic book characters legitimately come to life. So this had some groundbreaking special effects. They used a lot of green screen. Now we use blue screen, but that their whole catchphrase was, after you see this movie, you will believe a man can fly. And for 78, I mean, it was pretty it was pretty cool. It wasn't perfect, but I mean, for what you'd seen in the past in sci-fi movies, to see Superman take off and fly in this movie was pretty cool. This was a big budget. I can't remember, for the longest time. I mean, it was in the top 20 films, I think, of money making. It's dropped off since then. Obviously, there's been such big budgets come out after that, but
you're right, dude. It was totally groundbreaking, and I recently got a mug returned to me. I had this little plastic Superman the movie mug, and somehow one of my relatives had gotten it. I don't know, like my aunt or whatever. Oh, I must have, my mom or somebody must have gave it to them and gave it to my cousin, but it was returned to me like a few years ago. Oh my gosh, dude. I loved that mug. And it was the Superman movie mug. Just a little plastic mug, but I remember as a kid, I loved it. But we had both watched this again recently. I watched it for the first time in Blu-ray a couple weeks ago, whatever it was, when we were going to watch it. And I was like, okay, how's this going to hold up? Because I haven't seen it for years. I think, well, of course, on DVD back in the day, but after so many years, I still never got around to watching it in HD. So I watched it, and my first impressions were, wow, this movie holds up so damn well. I mean, it does, man. It's so iconic. Everything I remembered was just like coming back to me, and it was like, this is why I thought this movie was so great. Because, when you see movies when you're young, a lot of times, it's like, yeah, I was young, blah, blah, blah. They're impressionable, but this movie actually holds up to a T. And I thought maybe the special effects would look a little cheesier in HD, but to be honest with you, I love the flying scenes, and I kept looking for mishaps and different things like that. And to be honest with you, unless they fixed it, I couldn't find them, but I thought they looked great. The way the cape, flapped in the wind and everything, they made it so realistic. I think some of the flying movies today look a little more fake in aspect, because I know it's, CGI and all that stuff, but
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of, in this movie, there's a lot of practical shots where, it's wire work. They got him on in a harness, and they're lifting him. So, I mean, it's not, it wasn't all green screen. Some of the green screen stuff, obviously where he's chasing the rockets at the end, you can tell it's green screen.
Yeah.
It has been cleaned up over time for the DVD and Blu-ray and stuff like that. But yeah, when you watch Man of Steel, with Henry Cavill in there. I mean, it's an awesome movie too, but it's like when they're doing the flying scenes, yeah, you know that 100% of it is achieved with, movie magic, with blue screen, background, and it just doesn't look good. It looks good. I mean, it's seamless and stuff like that, but it just doesn't. I don't know. It's 1978 Superman. It just seemed a lot. It seemed a lot more realistic in a way.
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before. There's so many iconic movies that have come out of the 70s and 80s, but the 70s especially were like so epic with Star Wars, with Jaws, with just I don't know, man. I'm blown away with all the movies that came out in the 70s that blow most of the movies today away. Maybe not in like special effects, but story wise and and just the way they're made. I mean, it's hard to believe 70 was, because when we were, let's say, back in the 80s, when we look back on a movie from like, the 40s or 30s or something, we thought those movies sucked. You couldn't get me to watch a movie from the 30s or 40s. Well, that's what these movies are now, equivalent to,
Right.
And they freaking blow half the movies made today away. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man.
I mean, for a lot of it too. I mean, it was, it was good screenwriting. This is, you watch the beginning of this movie and you watch the beginning of the newest one, Man of Steel. The whole Krypton scene for the new movie, I didn't like it at all. It's like those stupid flying monsters flying around, and the whole thing is like CGI, and it's kind of goofy, honestly. And you go back to this opening scene on Krypton. When they're zooming in, first of all, you it's like a miniature. They're zooming in on the crystal planet, but I mean, how they zoom in and then they show you like the interior, and that's all practical sets. And they have those cool glowing outfits, the white glowing outfits that I remember reading somewhere that was some kind of lucite or something. It was like some crazy stuff that they used for that, and they glued these pieces on the costumes to make it glow like that.
Really?
And but they didn't waste any time explaining anything about Krypton, which is kind of cool. I mean, I don't need to know about, what Krypton is and who they are. They just go right into the scene with the three Phantom Zone criminals. At first you don't even know like what's going on here. Who are these three people in these rings?
Yeah.
Right. And which is cool because it was set up obviously for Superman 2. And they were filming these movies basically at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody knew. So I was like, when I was young watching that movie, I mean, I didn't really understand who those people were. I mean, I knew who they were, in like the Superman lore, and I knew they were getting sent to the Phantom Zone, but I didn't really understand why they were in the movie because they didn't talk about them the rest of the movie.
Right.
But they do that, and then of course they go into the whole monologue about how the planet's in danger and yada yada yada, and so they neither my wife or I will leave Krypton.
Yeah.
So, of course they're gonna send Superman. They're gonna send Kyle to Earth or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. I think the scene where Krypton's like disintegrating and people are falling in the big chasms and all that white crystal stuff falling over and crushing people. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool too. I mean, all that was like practical stuff. There was no CGI there. I mean, they were dropping big chunks of styrofoam on people and crushing them, and it looked good.
Richard Donner, he did amazing work on it. I mean, what was the big? Why am I drawing a blank? What was his other big hit before this one?
I think it was a comedy or something, wasn't it? I don't remember.
Let me look that up because I had it on my thing and I said, "Oh shoot, I forgot he directed that." What was it? It was a horror movie, wasn't he? Didn't he? Oh, he did the Goonies, but what? That was
like
later.
5 years later or something.
Yeah, but there was a iconic horror movie he did, I thought. Oh, The Omen.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what he did. And that movie was another 70s, I would say, iconic horror film like The Exorcist that that scares the crap out of me because I don't like, demons and devil stuff. But when you think of horror movies that really scared you, I would put The Exorcist, The Omen, right up there at the top because those are just kind of like so atmospheric and scary and more realistic type that when I heard when I was watching something about cursed films, and stuff, and they were going over The Omen and some of the bad things that happened during the making. And they said Richard Donner. I was like, wait, that's a Superman director. I had no idea he directed The Omen. And that was very, very eerie the way it was shot. Kind of like The Shining, There was a lot of really memorable scenes that kind of stick in your head. So that was a scary film to me. But yeah, that was the one. He directed that. Well, that came out in 1976. So yeah, 2 years later, Superman comes out. So he was a very busy guy. and then 2 years after that, 1980, Superman 2 comes out. So, and you said you watched the Donner cut of that, right? Superman 2. And how do you compare that with Superman 2, the theatrical? Is there a lot more?
It's, the only complaint I have about the Donner cut is that as a whole, the movie is 100 times better than what we were given back in 1980 because they got rid of a lot of the hokey slapstick garbage that they put in there, and they did have to use some screen test footage to fill in the blanks for some of the scenes, so you can see where they put it in there. But the story was way better in the Donner cut. The only thing that stunk is that essentially the ending of Superman 2 is virtually the same ending as Superman the movie. Basically, Superman flies around the Earth to turn back time to fix certain things.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I didn't like about it, but way more serious movie, the Donner cut.
Now, you told me that Walmart had, it's out everywhere, but the TV version of Superman on Blu-ray. So I went and got it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but they added oh my gosh, what was it? Another hour or 40 minutes or something?
Yeah, it's at least 40 minutes.
I mean, holy cow, dude, I didn't even hear about this. So I went and got it. But when we were going to watch this, I wanted to watch the theatrical to do this podcast.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go watch that cut later. But
I mean, there's nothing really of consequence like in the extra 40 minutes of footage. Mm-hmm. It's just that, ABC had gotten the rights to play it on TV, and they want, Superman was a huge movie. So they wanted to make it for ratings, I guess. They wanted to make it a two-night, thing. So they literally took Superman, they added 45 minutes of footage, and then they split it into 2 nights.
Wow.
And that's how long it was. But there's not any like really scenes that really change the movie.
Okay.
There is a really cool scene where where he's in Smallville, and he's racing to try to beat the train. Because he's trying to get home.
So maybe that wasn't in the movie, right? Because that's what I was I thought there was another Smallville cut. So maybe I remember watching on TV or something because
they, in the movie they just show him running alongside the train.
The train, right?
And you see like this. You see a little girl looking out the window and seeing him run.
Yeah.
So in one of the scenes they added was they have a scene inside the train, and she's like, "I saw a boy. He's running faster than the train." Blah 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 blah, and the girl's supposed to be Lois Lane, and the mother and father. The guy that's the father, he is the guy. Kirk Allen is the Superman from the original serials from the 1940s, and Lois Lane, I believe, was Noel Neal. That was Lois Lane from the 1950s George Reeves Superman TV show.
Oh wow!
So they had a cameo in there.
Oh, man.
And but there was a lot of extra scenes added to it. A lot of it, like I said, was, you could see why it was cut for a reason. It didn't really add anything to the story. Okay. But it's kind of cool to see it because I hadn't seen that cut since probably like 1980 or something when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and watched it on TV.
Yeah, I'm sure. We always watched big hits like that when they were on TV, and I'm sure I watched that 2-night event. I just can't remember it because I do remember going to the theater as a kid seeing it, but I don't remember seeing it at home on TV. But I know I had to have.
Yeah, when this came out, my dad was probably a bigger Superman fan than I was, and the local drive-in, was playing it on opening night, and it sold out. And
Wow.
I remember my dad. He drove around. He drove around the side by the fence so he could look and kind of check out some of the scenes.
Yeah.
And we ended up going, I think, like the next day, but to go see it. But I saw it at the drive-in, and so that's just a good memory there to see like a movie at the drive-in, and especially like a big budget movie like that.
Yeah.
But then Superman was actually one of the first movies that was big movies that was on HBO when they first came around. And I remember we got an HBO, and back then HBO didn't have 24 hours
Nope.
of programming with a different movie every 2 hours. They had like limited movies per month. Maybe they might have like 8 movies a month or something. So for like, I don't know how long, Superman was in rotation on HBO, like at least 2 to 4 times a day.
Oh yeah.
So man,
it was like Jaws.
Yeah.
Jaws was on that rotation. I remember because one of my friends had HBO, and I was so jealous. And of course, it was, you remember HBO, it was the little box that sat on top.
Yeah.
Little brown box with the little button, and you had to press the button to activate the HBO. And oh man, it was so cool though. It was it was so awesome.
Yeah, it felt like you were like, well, it was like groundbreaking to be able to watch a movie like that. But yeah, when it was on HBO, it was on 2 to 4 times a day, and I'd literally, when I was a kid, we used to keep track of how many times I'd seen it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember now, but I literally saw it, when it was on HBO at least 60 to 80 times.
Oh yeah.
Every time that I was able to watch it, I watched it, so probably by the 90s, I had seen this movie at least 150 times. There's no doubt about it. I'm not even exaggerating.
Well, we didn't have, seasons to what do you call it, the binge watching. We didn't have the binge watching. We only had a set amount of channels on TV. So, we just had the big three and then PBS, or something like that. So if you had HBO, man, you were watching HBO like all the time, It was, you would just watch the same thing. That's how you did it, but
and I remember I think it was Saturday, I think it was, in the evening, I think it was on PBS, by the way, they used to have Roger and Ebert at the movies. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we watched it every week to see what the new movies were coming out. And I remember Roger and Ebert did their review of Superman 2, and, they reviewed it, and they both gave it, 2 thumbs up and said it was awesome. And I remember my dad's he's like, honey, get your sweater. We're going to the drive-in. And we went right to the drive-in to go watch Superman 2. Wow. But
drive-ins were awesome back then. It was just, those were good times.
Well, I mean, that was the only option we had, because where I lived was kind of rural. We didn't have movie theaters. I mean, if you wanted to go to the movie theater, you had to drive to the big city, right? So the only time I got to see new movies was the summer blockbusters.
Yeah.
If anything came out in the fall or winter, forget about it, because my dad's like, I'm not driving to Cleveland to go see a movie.
Did you guys ever, because you could only listen to the sound in mono, that little speaker you hung on the window.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever try to stretch a speaker from the other side and put it in the other window? I know we tried that once, but some drive-ins, the cable wasn't long enough for the speaker, but we were trying to get stereo, so we
I do remember
mono speakers.
I do remember early on, and I can't remember what the deal was with Superman, but early on, you had that stupid metal box you hung on your window. Yeah. But the local theater, and I want to say for Superman or Superman 2, they had switched over where they transmitted the sound on an FM station.
Oh, they did.
So that you could listen to it in stereo through your car stereo system. So that was a lot better, obviously.
Yeah, that's cool, man. We didn't have that, with our drive-ins. They weren't that sophisticated around here that I remember. But they were good. I mean, I something about a drive-in was just so cool, because you'd have where they'd show 3 movies. You get out at 1 or 2 in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
And, my parents, obviously they didn't care about curfews if they were going to see a 3 movie run at the drive-in.
Yeah.
So, it was fun between movies, and they have that intermission. I'd go to the playground and do some swinging or that little spinning thing, whatever that thing was.
I don't think you were doing any swinging at the. When you're 6.
Not at that age. Yeah, exactly. But it was just so cool being outside in this big screen with, a movie playing, or.
Yeah.
At that time, it would be the intermission, because I'd get back to the car for the movie. But, you'd go get your refills or whatever you were getting, in between. You'd sit there 3 movies. I can't even... I have a hard time getting through one movie now. But you would sit through 3 freaking movies in a row.
Yeah, I'd never make it. We'd go to see whatever movie that we wanted to see, and then usually me and my sister would, they'd have the pillows and the blankets, and we'd end up sleeping in the back seat, or we would just go home,
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, no, we very rarely went to the concession stand. My mom she would load us up with, we brought her our drinks and popcorn, and it was like a picnic, dude. We'd have sandwich, we'd have everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So And my dad's like, I'm not going to pay for that food. I got to pay for these movie tickets, you know. So, you know, yeah, we could hardly ever go to the concession stand. But, yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun
What was some of the... Do you remember any other movies you saw at the drive-in?
I saw Star Wars at the drive-in.
Oh, did you really? Wow.
Yeah, and I don't remember too many after Superman 2. I think, you know, just at the, you know, when I was getting to be, so Superman 2 came out in like 80, so I was almost 10 years old, and yeah, then my father, you know, he didn't want to start taking two bigger sized kids to the drive-in, you know, all crammed in a car, uncomfortable and stuff like that. But yeah, I did see Star Wars at the drive-in, and you know, I mean, you know, a movie of that caliber. I mean, that's, you know, people are like, you know, when did you see Star Wars? You always remember, and that was like a big deal. So yeah, it was really cool seeing it at the drive-in, and I remember. I cried too when Obi-Wan Kenobi got killed.
Oh yeah. I don't remember what I did, but yeah, I'm sure I was on the verge.
Yeah.
But yeah, something about the drive-in. I remember a few movies at the drive-in. Like, since I was young, my parents tried to restrict me from, you know, rated R movies, but there was one time I couldn't get them to talk to let me go see Nightmare on Elm Street 2, but one time my mom took me and a couple friends, one or two friends, I can't remember, but we saw a 3-movie run at the Peoria Drive-In, it was called at the time, but it was Psycho 2, and that came out in 83. So I wasn't quite, you know, I was, 13, I guess? 71, 81? Something like that. 12 or 13, I don't know. 71, 81, 2, yeah, 12 or 13, I don't know, depending on what month, I guess. But we saw that, and do you remember that movie Curtains? I don't know if you remember that one, but that was another horror movie. But I don't remember the third one, and it bugs me. But yeah, man, that was one of I loved watching, you know, horror movies at the theater. But there was one other time that she took us, and do you remember this real cheesy sci-fi movie called Star Crash?
No.
Oh man, it was pretty bad, but it had this scantily clad, you know how a lot of those sci-fi movies, the women were always wearing barely anything.
Yeah.
They're always wearing like a, you know, almost like a swimsuit or something. You remember, you know, like Buck Rogers and what was that one girl in there? They always had, like, you know,
Princess Ardala.
Yeah. And it was Carolyn, whatever, Monroe, and David Hasselhoff was in it, and it was just a terrible film. But I remember I loved it back in the day, you know. And this guy that does all these cheesy B movies did it.
Uh-huh.
I think that was that him. Or did he produce it? I think it was like, you know who Corman is?
Roger Corman.
Roger Corman. I thought maybe he didn't do it. I thought he did it. Maybe not, because I'm trying to look it up right now, and it looks like this one came out in 79, and it was Stella Star, but it was a movie called Star Crash. And I thought it was a Corman movie, but I guess let me see here. Roger Corman. Yeah, when you get time, look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. Well, it says Star Crash, Roger Corman Cult Classics. So I guess it is.
Huh.
But it showed a different director. Maybe he just produced it. I don't know. But it's got a cult following, I guess. But it's pretty bad, man. Oh man, it must be out of print. The Blu-ray's going for 151. Wow. Oh wait, there's a multi. No, it's still up. There's a Blu-ray going for $16.99. Okay. Well, anyway, you can check that out later. It's pretty cheesy, but anyway, that was one of the movies I saw at the drive-in. And there was like this whole, after I guess Superman and Star Wars, there was all these movies like that coming out. You remember, like, just a ton of. Well, we talked about with Raiders. After Raiders is all those adventure films.
Yeah.
And same with the sci-fi. There was just all these sci-fi movies, good or not. It was just like there were just a whole run of them,
Well, yeah, for sure.
But I was looking. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's basically that was the trifecta of movies that really, started the run of all those movies that came out in the 80s. It was Star Wars, Superman, and Raiders, and those big budget movies were just so popular that every studio is like, well, we've got to come out with something that like as big as these movies. And of course, they never had the budgets, or they never had the director, and they never had the special effects, so they were always subpar,
exactly,
to say the least.
So where was I going with that? So we were talking about Richard Donner. He directed a couple really good movies. Obviously, which one we're talking about, Superman and The Omen. But years later, he directed The Goonies. But there's a couple other ones that when I was looking through his movies, I didn't realize he directed. And one was Lethal Weapon.
Yes, I do remember that now.
Lady Hawk. I don't remember that one. I mean, I remember it when it was on, but I don't remember if I've seen it really. Matthew Broderick was in it. But Scrooged, that's a great Christmas film, I think. It's just, with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And he did Lethal Weapon 2 and Lethal Weapon 3. There's a few other ones. Assassins, he did Lethal Weapon 4? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And then he drops off after 16 Blocks. So that was his last movie that I see on here, 2006. So is he still alive?
No, he died in 2021.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty old. I mean, he was like 91 years old or something.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, 90. He was 91. But yeah, he also did, which was a really good movie, was Conspiracy Theory.
Yeah, and I think I seen that, but I can't be for sure on that.
It's the one with Mel Gibson where he's basically, he believes everything that you hear on Alex Jones now, and he was like on the run, and Julia Roberts ends up helping him, and a really good movie, really good movie.
Well, that's right up my alley. I'm gonna have to check it out because I don't remember if I've seen it or not. But yeah, now that I see he directed that, I'm really interested. So one thing I didn't realize was Christopher Reeve was only 24 when he filmed Superman.
Yeah, he was unknown for the most part. I mean, he was basically like a stage like actor. But
you told me who they wanted before, right?
Yeah, I can't remember the whole slew. They had a whole list of guys that they were considering, and I can't remember who they are now. But they had really, from the beginning, had really wanted an unknown person, just because I think that I think probably because the people they were talking about using probably wouldn't have fit, and two, I think they were thinking about budget. You know,
Maybe I saw that in the making or something. I seen something where they had a big actor they wanted to play, and I'm like, oh, that would have bombed because he just wouldn't have been Superman. I like taking an unknown guy, and this guy, I don't know, man. They they found the perfect guy. You know, Christopher Reeve was awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny when, you know, if there was like a documentary, and when he first showed up, and they had put this suit on him to do like a screen test. I mean, he was this long, lanky, skin and bones. I mean, he had no build whatsoever, but you know, he had that look. You know, he had that face look, and he had that personality, and so they liked him, but they thought he was a little bit too thin. So he ended up hooking up with David Prowse, the guy that played Darth Vader, and he was he trained him, Christopher Reeve, and got him into weightlifting and got him in shape for the role. So and I forget how many pounds of muscle they said that he put on, but quite a bit. I mean, when you watch Superman, I mean, Christopher Reeve is not built like, you know, the comic book character. He's not built like Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill, I mean, that guy's a beast, man. You know, he didn't need any kind of padding or nothing. I mean, he's in great shape. But for the 70s, you know, Christopher Reeve looked the part of Superman. You know, he was big enough. Yeah, I think he was like 6'5" or something like that. So he was tall, and you know, he wasn't like a string bean, but he wasn't like, you know, ripped and chiseled. But I mean, he was big enough where it was believable. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, when you really think about the whole physics of Superman, you know, he doesn't really need to be super chiseled, you know, because it's just not how he works. I mean, I guess
powers, so he doesn't really is not in the muscle. It's his powers.
You know? Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, if you're picking up optics, I guess if you're constantly picking up, you know, helicopters and stuff like that, I guess you probably would eventually build some muscle. So I mean,
you're a kid picking up a car. He don't have no muscle yet, you know.
Yeah, you'd really have to lift some heavy stuff to start, you know, bodybuilding. You know what I mean? What would you have to pick up to bodybuild as Superman? You'd have to, you'd have to pick up like trains.
Hey guys, if you're listening to this podcast, you know we like pop culture. Why don't you go over to PopEnvyShop.com, PopEnvyShop.com, and check out the huge amount of pop culture toys, vinyl figures, statues, gift sets, pins, all from your favorite movies, TV shows, comic books, video games, you name it. They have every collectible for every dedicated fan in mind. You like action, adventure, horror. It's all there since 1996. They have provided exclusive limited edition toys, gifts, and collectibles. So go over to our partners at PopEnvyShop.com, PopEnvyShop.com, and shop for cool stuff. Use code SUNFREE22, SUNFREE22 at PopEnvyShop.com, SUNFREE22, and get free shipping on all orders $39 and up. Go to PopEnvyShop.com, PopEnvyShop.com.
You know, the movie starts out good, and I personally like the beginning part of the movie. I like the Krypton and Smallville part of the movie almost better than Clark Kent getting to Metropolis part of the movie. Even though that's where you get to see Superman. You know, I just think that, you know, especially when he gets to Smallville, you know, just the way it's shot, you know, it's in the 50s and it's like this farm town, and you know, it actually had like a serious type of a feel to it, and it was a good part of the story, especially his dad dying and all that kind of stuff. And
I always get choked up on that one.
Yeah, me too.
It's like
yeah. He's like all these powers, and I couldn't even save him. Yeah. I get a little teary eyed too. Yeah, about that. And they play that sad music, and then the camera pans away from the cemetery and all that. I mean that's the first part of the movie is. Even the Krypton part is pretty cool. I mean, they said a lot of bad stuff about Brando. He was so hard to work with, and he didn't want to learn his lines and all this kind of stuff. But I think Brando was awesome in the Krypton scenes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Did you watch? Oh wait, I cut you off. Sorry, man.
No, and it was cool too because I just remember the really fat Marlon Brando as he got older.
Yeah.
And the really young Brando, like when he was on the waterfront. But like when he was standing there in that white outfit, I mean, he looked like a big dude. You know what I mean? I mean, he looked huge. Yeah. I don't know if it was the costume or what, but and of course, he had a wife that looked like she was like 40 years younger than him.
Right.
But and then the only thing I didn't like about the Krypton scene, I know we're jumping back to Krypton, but is when they put Superman in the ship and the thing, and he lays that green crystal on it, and then the thing comes down, and then it bursts through the ceiling and takes off. That's the only flaw I really saw in the whole movie is that you could tell that that was being pulled up on a cable because when it hit the ceiling, it kind of moved weird, but then it took off. But I can never understand how, this ship like that, it was just made out of like these crystals that were laying there, closed in there. How that was able to keep him alive. Through space and stuff like that. There was like no controls. There's nothing in there. You know what I mean? There was like no electronics. So, but it was kind of cool. And then of course the scene where it crashes, in that field, and you see that big, huge like trench where it dug out, and and then he pops out, which they certainly couldn't show that scene today with some kid with his little tallywhacker hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh my gosh.
I'm surprised that kid didn't try to sue him like the Nirvana kid did.
Yeah, Nirvana kid. Yeah, it's like, what the hell was Nirvana thinking? Hey, if this kid grows up, you think he'll be pissed? I mean, I can't believe it even made. It was even possible to have that cover, released. I don't know what they were doing on that one.
Yeah, but but think about it. But it was even more surprising that in Superman the movie that they showed the kid's little winky.
I know. That's what I was like. I forgot all about it. But I mean, I was trying to think of other movies like that they got away with a lot of kind of.
I don't remember ever in my entire life ever seeing a movie where you saw a small kid's genitals.
I know. The only thing I could think of, like a movie that kind of compares to really kind of crossing the line with underage nudity, is probably like The Blue Lagoon. You remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember that. That was a little creepy too.
Yeah, it was.
I remember watching that as a kid. But because weren't they like brother and sister? I don't know. I remember I was a little kid when that came out. I just remember my parents. We decided we were going to watch it, and my parents are like, "Oh no, we can't watch this. This is like perverted."
Well, I realized she was like 16 when she filmed that. Walking around naked.
Well, she was definitely young. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was underage, 15. Maybe she was 15 or 16. I don't know. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, that was just a weird. I watched the making of it one time, and I remember because I always think in movies. I know we're getting off on a thing real quick, but I always think like, what if the dude gets hard? You know what I mean? Like, what if he has a boner or something? You know, and because obviously it's going to happen in some scenes.
My guess is, and I'm just only guessing, especially like the Blue Lagoon. She's 16. The other dude, I can't think of his name.
Willie Ames.
No, it wasn't Willie Ames. It was.
Wasn't Willie Ames?
I think it was Chris Atkins.
Oh shoot.
I could be wrong, but I would guess that they probably gave him something to prevent that from happening.
Well, I was watching the making,
or just the what do you want to call it? Just the idea of people filming you might just make you so uncomfortable that it wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? I would feel super uncomfortable if I was a guy having to walk around naked and there's like a whole film crew. There's 6 people with the camera, the director, everybody sitting there watching you. I would feel very uncomfortable. So I don't think that I probably would even be thinking about seeing Brooke Shields' naked body and getting excited.
Well, I know. I think it happened though, and I don't know. I watched the making of it one time, and it happened, and I don't know if it was the director or somebody said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's normal," or something. I don't know, man. It's crazy, but you'd have to look it up. You'll probably find it somewhere.
I think though, at some point in that movie, they like ended up like putting on like little cloths or something, didn't they? At some point?
They did. Yeah.
So I think there was only a couple nude scenes or something in there. It's been so long. I know. I'll never watch it again because I have no interest in it. But I guess at the time it was a big movie or something. But yeah. So
you're right though. I was doing this I'm doing this series where I'm looking through old magazines and commentating on them, and this last episode I was doing Fantastic Films, but the one before that I was doing Tiger Beat, and I kept Willie Ames kept showing up in there. I said, "Oh, he was in Blue Lagoon." I got it totally wrong. Totally wrong. And it's Christopher Atkins because I looked it up too. I was like, "Gosh, they both had that hair,
they had that curly hair too.
Yeah. I was like, what an idiot. I'm sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, Blue Lagoon," and this. Yeah. Oh man.
I think Willie Ames. I think his hair was naturally like that. Yeah. But I think like Chris Atkins and like William Catt from The Greatest American Hero.
William Catt, yeah.
I think that was like I think they just got perms. That was like big back then, wasn't it? I could be wrong.
Yeah, they were perms.
I mean, because you don't see people like that nowadays. No. You don't see people with like curly hair like that. You just don't see it. So I would assume that it was perms. But I think Willie Ames, that was his natural hair. Well, and you probably thought it was Willie Ames. I'm going to tell you why you thought it was Willie Ames. Because Willie Ames was in that movie with Scott Baio called Zapped. And that's where all with Heather Thomas. Yeah. And they kept on making her shirt bust open, remember?
But I just looked up Willie Ames, and it hit me why I thought he was the dude in Blue Lagoon. Do you remember the Blue Lagoon ripoff called Paradise? Did you see that? Because it had Phoebe Cates. Remember her?
That was the chick from Fast Times.
Yeah. Well, she's naked throughout like a bunch in Paradise, and so is Willie Ames. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, this is just like the Blue Lagoon. It's like a knockoff. It came out in 1982, and it starred Willie Ames and Billy. And that's totally why I got them mixed up.
Yeah, it's funny though because now you think about it, is that they went with a guy that had like curly hair.
Yeah.
Again. They could have went with anybody, but they're like, hey, it's got to be close to the Blue Lagoon, so find me somebody with curly hair. But since we're talking about Willie Ames, he was in that movie with Scott Baio called Zapped, and
I love that movie though.
There were so many boobies in that movie.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
But it wasn't Heather Thomas. That was a body double every time I read.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine but I remember watching that super early in the morning, like on HBO or Cinemax when my parents weren't up, and I was always worried I was going to get caught the whole time I'm watching it. But I couldn't stop watching it.
Hey guys, are you looking to get healthy? How about getting healthy naturally? Your body needs 90 essential nutrients, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 3 essential fatty acids. And the easiest way to get those nutrients into your body is to get the Healthy Body Start Pack. Go over to naturalhealthagenda.com and check out the awesome supplements that Youngevity has to offer. Also, guys, after 90 days of trying the products years ago, I decided to become a distributor because Youngevity gives you the power to become your own boss and to start your own business. I wanted to help others, so after healing my ailments naturally, I wanted to help other people. By becoming a distributor, I was able to share my knowledge to friends, family, and whoever wanted to listen. So drop Big Pharma, try something natural for a change. Go to naturalhealthagenda.com, naturalhealthagenda.com, and see what the power of nutrition can do for you.
They don't waste any time with, that's like the only small scene as a baby, and then, where he's a teenager. Boom, next thing he's a teenager. And the one thing that's messed up about the whole thing with him as a teenager is that for whatever reason, the guy that played Clark Kent, the teenage Clark Kent, for whatever reason, they decided that, it didn't sound right. So they made Christopher Reeve overdub all of his lines.
Oh, really?
So that's Christopher Reeve's voice. They dubbed it over. I don't know if there was so much of a difference in pitches or whatever.
Maybe.
So yeah, that's kind of messed up. So you're in a movie, you're acting. Hey, I'm in this movie. I'm in Superman. Blah blah blah. And your friends and family come in there, and it's like that doesn't sound like you. I mean, they kind of ripped the guy off. I feel kind of bad for him.
Yeah. Wow.
But I guess in that big 3-hour TV version, they added some scenes back in. Mm-hmm. And so those weren't dubbed by Christopher Reeve because they weren't in the theatrical cut. So I guess his voice changes from Christopher Reeve to the real guy to Christopher Reeve in a scene or two.
Oh my gosh, that's.
And I never noticed it, obviously, but yeah, I just found that out, and.
Yeah, one thing is when I was watching that, I talked to you before about this, but did you ever watch Smallville, the TV series?
I did, and I as much as I love Superman, I just couldn't get into the show. I mean, it was like, really? Here's the Krypton-powered person of the week. Remember, the first season was like, the meteor bits were affecting this high school student, and I was like, I just couldn't get into it, so I never finished watching the series.
Well, I loved it. I became a big fan of Smallville, but and I love the Michael Rosenbaum version of young Lex. I thought he did a good job. But
yeah, I did like him.
But in fact, I was listening to his podcast the other day. He's got a podcast, and it's really good. And did you know there's a Superman event in Metropolis, Illinois?
Yes, every year.
I did not know that. I did not know he's going to be there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" It's like
I've always wanted to go to that.
Yeah,
there's like a huge Superman statue in the middle of town, and
I did not know that. That's so weird.
For years, Noel Neal, the chick that played Lois Lane in the TV show, she would go there, and it would be a big event, but. I've always wanted to go, but if I lived in Illinois still, I would probably like to check it out.
I looked at it, and from where I'm at, it's like 4 hours away, and with gas prices the way they are, it's just not feasible.
Cheap bastard.
I know. But man, I would love to go,
You wouldn't have a problem if you had an electric car.
Yeah, exactly. I wish the good old government would go ahead and give out free electric cars since they want to jack everybody's prices up.
But do they? I know they have like a parade and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think big stars always show up every year.
Yeah. It would be cool though. It would be sweet.
Totally would be cool. Just I guess there's
maybe
a lot
next year.
Yeah,
maybe next year.
Yeah, I'm not even sure when they do it. I always thought about doing it, but
well,
yeah.
If you ever decide, maybe we should plan something. Yeah, when it's affordable.
They got a big thing in the Cleveland airport.
Really?
It's like a big, huge display. There's a statue of Superman, and there's a display because he was created in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And by Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster.
Yeah.
And so there's a big thing in the airport there, which is kind of cool.
That is awesome. So the movie, what's your favorite part of the movie? The beginning, you think?
Yeah, I mean,
half or.
I mean, it's. I like that part of the. Like I said, I like that part of the movie better. Only because I just don't like. I don't like Lex Luthor in this movie because they made him too comical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I like the movie, and I like Gene Hackman, and I like Lex Luthor in the movie, but I don't like him that they made him kind of a clown and they gave him Otis, his stupid sidekick. Yeah. But that for me is the whole downfall of the movie is that they made Luthor's supposed to be like this angry, evil guy, you know what I mean? Yeah. And he was just kind of like, they made him too comical. But I think probably my favorite scene from the movie is obviously the montage where where he essentially my favorite scene is where he's in the Fortress of Solitude, and he's talking to Marlon Brando, and then the next thing he's in the suit, and then he does that initial flight off off the ice there, and he flies right into the camera. That's like awesome. Yeah, that's super awesome.
That is awesome.
But the ending, with the two missiles and blah blah blah. First of all, that's dumb. Okay, it was just a dumb premise because Superman is fast enough to stop both the missiles. Okay, because you saw it later in the movie. He was so fast, he flew around the Earth 8 zillion times to spin it the opposite direction. So he could have stopped both of those missiles, right? It's so that was a big flaw for me in the movie. But when he first appears in Metropolis with the whole helicopter scene, and then he stops the crooks, and that's like his first night and his debut in town. Yeah. That's awesome. You know what I mean? He's stopping the crook. He's stopping the guy that's climbing on the outside of the building. And that's better than the whole interaction with Lex Luthor stopping the missiles and the kryptonite necklace and all that kind of stuff. And of course, as corny as it is, the interview with him and Lois on her balcony, and then they go for their flight together. And what's really cool about that scene is after they get done flying, and he brings her back to her balcony and stuff like that. There's a part right in there where it's remember, he talks to her, blah, 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 and then he flies off, right? And there's a knock on the door, and it's Clark Kent, right?
Yeah.
And that's all one continuous shot. So, so what happened was I saw this on the making of the movie is like where he takes off and flies away, that's actually a projection. There's actually a movie screen there. And so that's how they were able to do it in one continuous shot.
Awesome. That is awesome.
So that was pretty cool, and you would never have known that, honestly. But yeah, the whole the plot of the movie with Luthor and stuff like that, it could have been better. You know what I mean?
Well,
and I think, as time has went on, I don't mind her so much, but I don't really think Margot Kidder was the best choice for Lois Lane.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
I liked her in the first movie, but I didn't really like her in the following movies as much. She just was more kind of like annoying.
Yeah.
And it was kind of unbelievable that, of all the women on Earth that this super powered alien could choose from, he's interested in her. You know what I mean?
Now, I don't want to flip back, but I'm gonna just for long. But I just want to flip back to Smallville real quick because there was a point I wanted to bring up. I don't know how far you watched in Smallville, but it got better as it went on. But I think what I loved about that show so much was the fact that John Schneider played an awesome Jonathan Kent. I mean, when he was in, he was just an awesome dad in that film. And the other actor that made it, besides, I did like young Lex. I thought he did a great job. But Lex's father, Lionel Luthor, who was played by John Glover.
Yeah,
amazing actor. Gosh, he had the Lex Luthor, like you could tell how Lex was he was fighting this evil inside him. Like, and his dad was just this abusive, guy, and you see how Lex becomes evil, and he was trying to fight it. He was trying to be good at one point, trying to become friends with, it was like they had a friendship, him and Clark, but they're always going back and forth, it was like he wanted to become friends, but the evil was just, building inside. And that's kind of like that whole story that kind of made Smallville and with John Glover as this, bad father, but he had a slick way of being cool at the same time,
Yeah.
It was really cool. But I love John Schneider. I mean, that he just is an excellent actor. But we were talking about tearing up in Superman when Jonathan Kent dies.
Yeah.
Well, the same goes for Smallville. When they killed Jonathan, John Schneider, Jonathan Kent, whatever, off, and he died, it was tears. I mean, it was because he played 100 some episodes.
Yeah.
They killed him off, man. That was something. You invested time in that character. You knew it was coming because of the Superman story, but you didn't know when. And when it happened, it was like, oh man. But that show did go on for, was it 10 seasons, I think?
I mean, it was on a long time, which was shocking for me.
It was shocking. Yeah.
And I think it went on for so long because it wasn't Superman. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he wasn't flying
to Superman.
Yeah,
right.
He wasn't flying around in a costume and stopping bank robbers and stuff like that.
Hi guys, Steve here. Are you a musician, composer, or hobbyist? Do you use music software instruments, virtual instruments, audio plugins, or whatever? Please check out my blog at samplesoundreview.com. samplesoundreview.com, where I share the latest new releases, reviews, and an exclusive deal page where you can save a buttload of money on virtual instruments. So why not check out samplesoundreview.com for the latest deals. You can also find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. that's new and trying to grow. We also are on Twitter and a couple other sites, Instagram. So samplesoundreview.com. Check us out and save some money.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at all of the portrayals of Lex Luthor, you know, you have the one from Smallville, you have Lex Luthor from Lois and Clark.
Yeah, what'd you think of that one?
I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah, I did too.
I think I think that Gene Hackman's is the worst Luthor ever in any Superman media. He was just too.
Yeah,
he was too,
I know
he
what
was,
you mean.
He was too hokey.
Comical. Yeah.
And that ruined it. And another thing about it is that they kept on bringing him back, right?
Yeah.
They kept on bringing him back. I mean, that's why I think, you know, after Superman 2, they should have came up with
new villain.
A new villain.
Yeah.
Instead of that stupid, you know, Superman 3, of course they did the one with Richard Pryor and the supercomputer, remember? Which, my gosh, I would have much rather had Gene Hackman than that thing, you know. And then, you know, Superman 4 Quest for Peace, of course they bring Lex Luthor back with that stupid nuclear man, which isn't even a real villain in Superman comics, and it was just dumb.
Now that's where they really screwed up on the flying scenes. Superman 4, wasn't it? Because I remember seeing a cable or something that's in that movie.
The effects, well, you know, that was like a Golden Globus production. You know, they used to make all those, you know, they made like Missing in Action and all those cheesy movies from the 80s. So, I mean, the budget for that movie was just so low. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a good idea to use Luthor for the first one. And obviously he had to be in the second one.
Yeah.
Because
you're right. They should have changed it to somebody else, just like they do in all the movies now.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you look back at even you know, Michael Keaton's Batman movies. Mm-hmm. You know, the first movie it was the Joker. The second movie it was the Penguin.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you need a challenge.
Right.
For Superman. I mean, he's just some bald, you know, nut. You know what I mean? It's just, but yeah, I mean, Gene Hackman was the worst Luthor ever. And he's a good actor, so it's unfortunate. I mean, obviously that was the script he had to work with and whatever, but yeah, I mean, the movie's still awesome. It's still awesome. And even though there's some things in the movie that are hokey and, like I said, Superman definitely could have stopped both of the missiles and whatever. But I mean, it's.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, you know, I'm always looking for problems and things that don't make sense myself. And for the most part, though, I could nitpick most of the movies today, like,
right.
Like, okay, yeah, this is stupid, you know. But I mean, for a 1978 film, what they did, I mean, yeah, it's still just a cinematic kind of masterpiece, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it was. I was just reading here on IMDb. It said that the film was planned. It took 3 years of planning. The film. It took 2 years to shoot the film. They had over 1,000-person crew.
Wow.
11 film units that was spread over 3 studios and in 8 countries. Over 1 million feet of film was used.
Jeez.
And it had the highest production budget of any film at the time.
Man. Well, there you go. And I remember seeing, I don't know if it was a making of or it was something. I watched a special feature, maybe that was it. And they said when Superman, that scene you were talking about, when he first flew, when they did that live, when they first figured it out, and he flew for the first time. Obviously, I don't think they were filming at that time, but I'm not sure. maybe they were, but all I know is most of the crew just started crying. It was so awesome.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that weird? I mean, it's like they broke cinematic history with that flight scene, with the way they learned how to make him fly, and they weren't going to use any type of effects that were ever used prior. It was all brand new technology that they were doing, and I guess the crew just cried when they saw him fly for the first time. When I think about Christopher Reeve, did you ever see the movie he did after Superman called Somewhere in Time?
Oh, I just watched it the other day, but yeah, it's an awesome movie.
Oh, I love that movie. I got that on Blu-ray a while back, and I've been wanting to revisit that one because I used to watch it. I used to watch when you were talking about HBO. They used to play that one on HBO all the time.
Yeah. What we didn't talk about, which is a huge part of the movie, is the intro. Like the intro of the movie, the music, yes. And how the words were coming at the screen.
Yes.
And just that John Williams theme. I mean, that is iconic. That is as big a part of the movie as, Superman flying around or Krypton.
Right.
Is that intro. And that's why when Superman Returns came out, they knew, man, we have to use that music. We have to use that 1978 intro to the movie, because that was just a huge part of building, the movie up. After you watch that intro to Superman the movie, in the opening credits, I mean, you were so pumped. I was so pumped after watching that intro.
Oh yeah.
That I couldn't take it.
Why didn't they take Superman the movie and transfer it to 3D technology? Because they've done that with older movies, and they look stunning. They're just it just adds so much more depth, and I think that movie would look phenomenal in 3D.
Well, I mean, the opening credits would. I don't know if anything else in the movie would be that great. But
have you ever? Well, see, I got a 3D TV. I know 3D is not popular right now because they kind of quit making those TVs, I think. And but if you've taken a film like, what? I'm trying to think of an old film. Well, they did this with Top Gun, the original Top Gun. They made a 3D version of it, and it looks phenomenal. It's not the 3D where it's made to pop out in front of you, but it's just a 3D
right
depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think they should have did that with Superman. I mean, I would have bought it in a heartbeat, just because it's just a different kind of experience. But that's just, I don't know, one of my thoughts I was having with it. It's like,
so I came across the list of the original actors they wanted to use.
Oh yeah,
Robert Redford.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I'm like,
Clint Eastwood.
What a bomb, I love Clint, but no Superman, no Superman.
And James Caan.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, could you imagine that?
3 bad flops right there. Just not Superman material. Sorry,
No.
I mean, Clint Eastwood's Superman is his own right, but he's not Superman with a cape. Gosh.
And it's said that Christopher Reeve gained 42 pounds of muscle for the movie.
Wow. Well, if they had that much time preparing for the movie, he had plenty of time to gain some weight. Then I don't know. What'd you say? They had 3 years of planning or something? Jeez.
It also said that the credits, the opening credits for the movie, cost more than most movies that had come out previously.
Really? Just the credits?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, those would have been cool in 3D. Kind of like how they did, like Friday 13th Part 3 when it was in 3D and it come out at you.
It says here, the actor who played Superman as a baby died in 1991 from inhaling solvents at the age of 14.
Holy
so he was like,
cow, he was only 14?
He was like sniffing gas or something and killed himself.
That's a terrible story, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Wonder if his parents are still alive.
I probably would think not. Maybe. It's this definitely is it's an all-time classic. Classic. I don't think they can reboot Superman today and make a better movie than this. I just don't think it's possible.
No. I mean, there's just something magical about, the way it was shot, the way, Christopher Reeve was, I guess. And, I can't believe I still can't believe he's dead, at 52. It's just mind blowing that had to happen to him. How long was he paralyzed? I mean, he was paralyzed for a long time before he, died. But,
yeah.
Gosh, that was just devastating. Well, didn't that happen in the 80s or did that happen in the 90s?
I don't remember, but yeah, he was paralyzed for a long time. I mean, and it's what's sad about that story is that he was paralyzed and he went through all that and then he passed away. And then, like a year later, his wife died of lung cancer, and she never smoked a cigarette in her life, from what I understand.
Really?
And
oh God.
So their kids just within a matter of a year, lose both their parents.
Jeez.
It's horrible.
Okay, so 95 is when he
first was paralyzed.
Yep, 95. So he just died, what, like
10 years ago, right?
Was it 5 or something? Or shoot, I don't even know.
2004.
4? Wow.
So he was paralyzed for 9 years.
Man.
Then? Seems like a lot longer than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does.
He ended up making an appearance on Smallville, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. That was a great episode. They had a lot of cameos and stuff.
Well, I know that the mother, Martha Kent, she was the one that she was the actress that was Lana Lang in Superman 3.
Yeah, exactly. Annette Toole. She was a great mom too. She was. I forget. I don't know why I didn't bring her up, but yeah, her and John made a great couple in that show.
And then the one girl, the blonde girl, right? She was the one that was indicted for that sex cult.
Yes, what was it, Exium or something like that? Yeah, I mean that was crazy because she was like this innocent, bubbly girl, and all of a sudden she's in some cult recruiting women to get branded, and it was crazy, man. When I heard that, I'm like, geez.
Yeah, I never heard the full story, but I just heard she was in some kind of sex cult or something. I don't know.
Hey guys, do you want the best iodine supplement around? Do you have problems with gut health? You want immune support, hormone support? You got trouble sleeping? Hey, I got a company that I have been buying products for years. They have the best detox programs available. So you want to detox your body, this is the place to go. I want you to visit globalhealingorganics.com. globalhealingorganics.com. Use the coupon code HEALTHYLIFE to get 10% off any order $50 and up. Use the coupon code HEALTHYLIFE for 10% off any order $50 and up. You will not be disappointed. These are the best herbal tincture supplements out there, and their products are so clean, organic. You got protein powders, you got detox and cleanse products, you got skincare, you name it, check it out. globalhealingorganics.com. Get 10% off using coupon code HEALTHYLIFE.
I think it holds up. It stands the test of time. I think it's the greatest superhero film of all time, hands down. And there'll never be another Christopher Reeve. He made you believe that he made you believe in Superman, that it was real. Maybe that's because I was a kid, but it totally holds up. They can't make anything that would even come close to it nowadays. And it's just one of those movies from the 70s/80s that it set the standard. And a lot of the movies that we take for granted nowadays would not exist without Superman. We wouldn't have the entertainment that we have today if it wasn't for Richard Donner and the Salkind brothers and Christopher Reeve and the whole cast that made this movie, because it basically got the ball rolling, and it changed movies forever.
Yeah.
Superman and Star Wars and Jaws, those movies, they defined what a blockbuster is, right? That's where they got that from. It was a blockbuster, and that's what that was like the measuring stick from then on. It had to be as big as Star Wars. It had to be as big as Superman.
So isn't that something when you think about it? You got Jaws that kicked off the whole animal killer movies, the all those different movies that came out about animals killing,
right.
Piranha, Grizzly, I don't know what all those movies. I'm trying to remember. There were so many of them. You remember that? There was just so many different nature turns on man movies, type of films. So Jaws kicks that off. Halloween kicks off the slashers. And then Star Wars kicks off the sci-fi movies. That's why the 70s are probably the most iconic decade for film, I think. Overall, if you added up every decade, that probably is the most important decade.
Well, I think not just for movies. I think the 70s kicked off literally everything that we appreciate today. Movies, TVs, music. Think about it. Hard rock and roll really came to its own in the 70s. Metal came out in the late 70s. TV shows really changed in the 70s. $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, Incredible Hulk, Battlestar Galactica. Until before then, you're watching the Rockford Files and Perry Mason and Goof, Emergency, and it's like the late 80s things changed, and then it's never went, especially TV. As soon as that stuff came out in the 70s, then it just got bigger in the 80s with Knight Rider and the A-Team and Greatest American Hero, and then the 90s and the X-Files. Everything exploded from the 70s.
You're right. Think of the music that came out in the 70s. You're right. Metal started in the 70s. Prog rock started in the 70s. Disco started in the 70s.
Yep.
Which probably, since disco faded out, probably opened the door for the pop artists.
The new wave pop and stuff.
The new wave pop. So, you're right, man. 70s was just Wow, such an important decade. Absolutely, absolutely.
And a lot of it had to do with, I think, with the nation coming out of like Vietnam, and we had the energy crisis back then, and so people just wanted to escape.
Yeah.
So that opened the door for bigger and better, entertainment and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the '70s. So, yeah, you're right, man. That's pretty wild, man, to think of all the stuff that came out of the '70s for sure. So the bottom line, if you haven't seen Superman, the movie, go watch it. What are you waiting for?
Right.
And if you haven't seen it in a while, go watch it and relive the experience. Got anything else, Steve?
No. Hopefully every episode will get better. That's all I can say.
Yeah. This is called Raw Talk,
Right.
Raw Talk.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys real soon.
Peace.
Bye-bye.